Hey there. I'm going to talk about my best and worst experience of the summer at Camp Corey. And it has to do with red-tailed hawks, the Furtesi phase. One day I was out there and I heard a very airy whistle about 100 yards away. And I was like, I wonder what that is. It kind of sounded like a red-tailed hawk, but not really. And then it was followed by another one. I was like, Well, about a week went by and two whistles. I mean, each. There were two whistles followed by two whistles. I thought it was the same bird. But I thought, I didn't know what it exactly it was. And then a couple of weeks went by, three whistles followed by three whistles. And that's when it dawned on me. I was listening to a baby red-tailed hawk from its nest learning to count. It had started with one whistle, then learned two, and then went to three. And whenever it was in the threes, almost drove me crazy. I just kept hearing. Just all day long. And then they finally got up to four, seven. By the time it was at seven, all day long. Finally, it was up to 11 or 12, and the day would be filled with this bird counting from his nest. Well, finally, the day of fledgling came. And that's when I learned it had been two birds. It was a brother and sister. And that's why there were so many whistles. But the female was the first to leave the nest. And she ascended in a slow, giant, clockwise circle. And Daddy stayed way above her. And Mama stayed way below her. And as she was in her ascending circle, she started to count. And that was her. I was like, oh, that's who was making all those whistles. And then all of a sudden, a juvenile red-tailed hawk male flew into my camp, and he whistled. He lit in a tree and he whistled. So what had happened is sister had decided on her first flight that she was going to ascend and go as high as she could, and that's what she did. And like I said, Papa was above her, way up there, and Mama was below her, and they were calling to each other. It was a beautiful experience. But one little thing I left out about this story was whenever they would be whistling, especially when they were one, two, three whistles, four, five, I would be whistling back at them. And so that had captured that little male's imagination. And so he had decided on his maiden voyage, his first flight, he was going to go investigate Camp Corey. So I think that is amazing. He flew straight to my camp and started to whistle, and I was like, whoop, whoop, whoop. I started whistling back at him, and he just studied me. And Daddy's up there flying, Mama's flying around. Uh, so they drove me crazy while they were learning to count. But then whenever they left their nest, like I say, the first one, the female, she just did this ascending. I mean, she went up to the stars on her first flight. Daddy stayed above her, Mama stayed below her. And that little male, when he left, or, whenever he left the nest, he flew straight to Camp Corey to see who was whistling back at him all these times, ever since he came out of the egg. So they drove me crazy, always whistling. I whistled back, but whenever they left their nest, they were beautiful. So that's some good experiences from Camp Corey 2017. It's very cold now, so I've moved indoors. Wish I was still out there, but anyway, next year. All right, talk to you later.